Hello, welcome to our Facebook Live discussion, Parent Burnout Expert Tips to Cope. I am Deborah Porter, and I am with Washington Parent. I am the writer for their parent advice column, Coach Balanced Life with Coach Deborah. I am also a veteran mom and family life coach. Very excited to be here today. I am joined by two incredible physicians from the Mid Atlantic Permanente Medical Group who serve Kaiser Permanente patients, family medicine physician Dr. Allison Parker Fahey and psychiatrist Dr. Stacy Neal. Dr. Parker Fahey, would you like to introduce yourself, and we'll be followed by Dr. Neal introducing herself.
Of course, thank you. So I'm Dr. Parker Fahey. I'm a family medicine, board certified family medicine physician here at our Kensington Kaiser facility. I see both kids and adults, and I actually am a mom of two girls of 2 years old and 4 years old. So I'm so happy to be here, so happy to talk about such an important topic. So thank you.
And
Yeah,
Dr. Neal.
thank you so much for having us. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Dr. Stacy Neal. I am a board certified psychiatrist, and I care for patients at the Kaiser Permanente Woodlawn Medical Center, and I'm the mom of an energetic 6-year-old.
We're super excited to have you both. Thank you for being here. And we're also very excited to be talking to you today about parent burnout. Studies have shown that 66% of working parents have experienced burnout during COVID-19 pandemic, and that it can have dire consequences for both parents and their children. So that's why we're here today with our expert panel of physicians from the Mid-Atlantic Permanente Medical Group. In this Facebook Live, we will provide practical solutions for parents dealing with burnout, and what parent is not dealing with burnout. So if you're watching live, please post any questions in the comments and we will do our best to answer all of them live today. So let's jump in. Dr. Neal, what is the clinical definition of burnout and how does that apply to parents?
Yeah, so burnout is like a vital exhaustion, and it can be physical or mental and emotional. And it's usually the result of a prolonged stress, and it causes you to feel detached and negative or cynical about your responsibilities. And it can really affect your ability to be effective at what you're trying to do. And we often think about burnout in the context of like work, your occupation, but parenting is obviously a full-time job. And so it's important to recognize that parenting can be a source of burnout too.
And would you say, well, let me ask Dr. Parker Fahey, would you add anything to that? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, I think that that's a great definition. I think that what she's saying is also important to show that doesn't have to be just from work. This doesn't have to be, just from parenting. It can be from both. It can be from, with COVID-19 and isolation. I mean, there's so many things that can contribute to burnout. But I think it's really important to focus on parents who also maybe work or not, because sometimes yeah, people don't think of it as being a parent with burnout. So,
Well, let me ask you this. Dr. Parker Fahey, I'll stay with you right now. Both working parents and stay-at-home parents can experience burnout. We know that to be true. But how is it different for each group?
yeah, I think that's really important because you're dealing with different demands, different responsibilities, and different people who you're in charge of. At home, you have young people who count on you for everything, and they don't always necessarily understand all the demands that you have. You have to set up boundaries for burnout, and we'll talk about that, I think, a little bit as well later. But it's harder to do sometimes with your children. They don't necessarily always understand why you have to set up boundaries, and that guilt's there. Um, with work, there's a lot of responsibility there. There's certain things that need to get done, and so those demands are separate, and especially for parents who have both, you have to kind of figure out how to juggle them all and take care of yourself and set boundaries. So it's different, and they both provide different challenges. And sometimes it's harder to be, a stay-at-home mom because you don't have that outlet. Stay-at-home dad because you don't have that outlet of adults to kind of help and understand. And then sometimes it's harder to do both because you're really trying to demand or to take care of all the demands of everything. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's a lot. Well,
I-
Dr. Neal, let me ask you this. So I think the one thing that wasn't mentioned here is what about the work from home parent? Because
yeah.
that's something that we're doing now too. So we've got the stay-at-home parent, the working parent, but then we have the blend of the work from home parent that may also have little children at home. Can you talk a little bit about how it may affect that parent as well?
I would love to speak to that. And I also wanted to add about like the differences with the stay-at-home parent and the working parent. I think that the outcome is that burnout is burnout. But sometimes I hear stay-at-home parents feel guilty because it's a role that they have chosen. I decided I wanted to be the stay-at-home parent, and I'm feeling burned out. I feel incompetent because I'm feeling burned out, and then their partner may assume that, oh, they don't really need a break from that. That's their job. I go out and earn the money, and the stay-at-home parent, they should handle it, when they're off work. So I think that is important to recognize that the stay-at-home parent does need a break too. Just like we go to, we go to work, we get bathroom breaks and lunch breaks and vacations. And I think I really feel for stay-at-home parents who don't get that, and maybe a partner doesn't get that. But even with the working parent, studies show that there's often one, even if both parents are working outside of the home, one parent often takes on more of the parenting and domestic duties. So, I think that's important to recognize too. And then the parent who's working from home and parenting, oh my gosh, that is so, so, so challenging. And during the pandemic, a lot of people were forced to take on these roles that are it's really not sustainable. And so I think it's really critical to just recognize that you're human. You're not going to do both things perfectly all the time. And that's okay. And hopefully you have the support to just kind of help you keep things going.
Thank you both so much for that. I think that all of our parents are going to be seen today based on how you described this, the way that we've been able to address each parent, whatever stage they may be in. So thank you for taking the time to really kind of, separate that out and explain the importance of everyone needing a break, right? Everyone needing time to themselves. So Dr. Parker Fahey, let me ask you this. Is burnout different than postpartum depression? And if so, how and why?
So this is actually a really, really important question, especially for new parents, pregnant women who are looking forward. So postpartum depression is following childbirth, typically arising kind of from the combination of hormonal, psychological adjustment and fatigue. So it's all three. But I think a big thing that kind of differentiates the two is there's a lot of hormonal changes, especially if you're then breastfeeding and that can take people think, oh, well, just a couple months. I mean, that's a year to a year and a half after
Mhm.
pregnancy, that you're still going through a lot of hormonal changes. And so the good thing to kind of also to show is that they also can happen most of the time actually together. You get parent burnout, you get burnout prior to pregnancy that you have to be aware of too, because they can just add on top of each other. And they're both kind of important to focus on separately, but also together, in addition with just underlying depression, underlying anxiety, because they all can be treated similarly, but it's also good to kind of see what's the best treatment for you. And so trying to recognize throughout your pregnancy, even before you want to get pregnant, where your mental health is, and so that you can kind of prepare that, hey, I'm already burnt out. I still want to have a baby, and that's okay, but I'm going to prepare myself so that I can do it the best way that I can.
That's great. Dr. Neal, what are your thoughts around postpartum depression and burnout, similarities, differences?
Yeah, so one interesting thing about postpartum depression is it can actually even develop before delivery. So even before the demands of parenting start. So like Dr. Parker Fahey mentioned, we know there's something hormonal happening there. And often the mother may have had a history of depression or family history of depression. And so there's this medical condition there outside of like being exhausted from parenting. And I like to conceptualize burnout as like, a runner running a race, and kind of at the start of the race, you're full of energy, but then, somewhere in the middle, you're out of gas, you're out of steam. And so that doesn't always have to be the case with postpartum depression. It doesn't have to be those certain circumstances, but with burnout, you'll see though that there's just too much demand and not enough resources.
Understood. Thank you so much. Well, let's stay there for a minute, Dr. Neal. What are some of the symptoms then of burnout in parents? And is there a quiz or a test or a questionnaire that parents can take to kind of see if they're actually burnout? What are some of those symptoms?
Yeah, so there can be a lot of fatigue, irritability. Sometimes it can affect you medically, like high blood pressure. You can have, just muscle tension and headaches. It can affect your sleep. There are lots of quizzes online that you could take. In my practice, I'm kind of interviewing clinically and hearing what's going on in someone's life, and hearing that they really don't have kind of an outlet for just some relaxation, just some R&R. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Parker Fahey, any thoughts about the symptoms of burnout in parents and how can they really determine if this is what they're suffering with?
Yeah, I think a big kind of indicator sometimes, because it sometimes creeps up on you a little bit as well. You just kind of get through the day to day and do it, and you find yourself saying, I used to have a lot of interest and excitement with doing this thing, whether it's your job, whether it's, taking care of the kids at home, and say, I'm just trying to get through the day now instead of enjoying the time with my kids, or I'm just trying to get through the work week. And I used to really love to come to work and I went to school for this. I did this. I'm doing what I want to do, but that interest isn't there because you just, like you said, you're out of gas, and you just kind of sometimes have to take that step back, and like you also said, it influences every part of your blood pressure, your sleep, and then every part of your life because it affects relationships, and so I think that the all those symptoms, just to kind of give yourself a self check-in every now, see where you are on that scale, because it's also not something that you just get over and okay, now I'm good, it's not going to happen again. It's okay, well, actually this month I'm actually doing pretty well, and then it gets into a busy time and you get burnt out again. And so it's that constant checking in with yourself on these type of symptoms. And then the other big thing is people are different. Not everybody's going to so that's why there's so many different quizzes, different things, but not everybody's going to have the same things. Not everybody's going to have the same checklist. But when you find yourself not feeling like yourself anymore, I think that's a good time to check in.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you said that at the end because I think sometimes we compare our situation with others. And I just think it's important for people to know that your burnout will probably not look like anyone else's burnout. And that doesn't mean it's not burnout. It just means for you, it may be showing up differently. So we have a question from Facebook. Let me go ahead and read it. This mom says, I feel as though I have two full-time jobs, one that pays the bills and supports my family, and the second being a mom of two children. Working from home doesn't allow me to have any separation between the two. I'm working to incorporate breaks and personal time, but even that starts to feel like a job. Here's the question. What are some things I can try to alleviate the struggle? Whoever would like to begin first. This is a mouthful, but this is such a great description of what parents are feeling.
Yeah, I think that is so hard, and I think there's not an easy answer. But I would say, it's going to have to be something you do think about daily. I hear that feels like a job too. But I would encourage you to every day think of maybe 3 things that you're just going to do for yourself. You're taking care of your job. We're so good at taking care of other things and other people, and it can almost be like we're an afterthought. If there's anything left over for me at the end of the day, then I'll do this. But I would just encourage you to start your day thinking about maybe the 3 things you'll do for yourself. And it could be something very personal, maybe that you would get some enjoyment from. And you're busy. It doesn't have to be that you go out and, get a massage or go to a 2-hour movie. Sometimes it could be something as small as, I put on some scented hand lotion, or I lit a candle, or I turned on some music that I enjoyed, or I stood up and danced for 5 minutes, but to just think about it, something that you might look forward to for yourself. And, if you can, recruit your partner or a family member to also help to give you a break. But it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to minimize that. That is definitely a struggle.
Yeah, and I'd just add to that. I think it is really, like we already talked about, very individualized. Everybody's gonna have to do that daily check-in of, well, sometimes it's hard to say, well, what do I actually like? What did I used to do for myself? And taking that time to see, what really does give you your fuel back, because it's different for everybody. And also, it's okay to fail. You could say, I'm gonna do this right, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do these boundaries, and that might not work for your life and for your family and for how you run things, and that's okay. So you try something different. And so again, we have a lot of different tips. You'll hear like, do this and do that, and that might work for some people and not work for others. I know we'll talk about having great support systems, whether it's with your family, whether it's with the people you work with other people who are going through similar things, um, whether it's your religion, social group activities. But some people are introverts and they don't like that, and that's fine too. It could be, I want to be in a room by myself for like 5 minutes of the day, and that's fine. So just knowing that every day you can try again and find something else that you enjoy to do, that gives yourself a break, that gets you, to enjoy things a little bit more.
Thank you both. I'm sure, and I hope that that's helping the person that wrote that. One thing I would add to that is, don't aim for perfection in many of these things. There is such an added pressure for us to feel like if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't right. Done is done. And perfection is really just that thing that's going to keep you on that wheel and spinning for something that's really not attainable in a really real way. So I would add that 2 cents to
I love
everything
that.
that you all just
Yeah.
added. So let's move on.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about parents that are experiencing severe burnout. What do you tell parents who find themselves in that situation? They know that they are experiencing burnout. They know that it is off the charts. When should a person contact their doctor or their mental health professional?
I can start. So
Yes, Dr. Neal, thank you. Thank you.
sure. I think you have to start with looking at the basics. And it's surprising how often we can overlook the basics when we have so much on our plate. But by the basics, I mean like getting enough sleep, making sure you're eating a good diet. Are you getting some exercise? Are you making some time for yourself? And I think that we can get so caught up in what we have to do, and we feel like it's okay to sacrifice the sleep. It's okay to maybe pick up some quick fast food, but all these things are taking a toll. And for the burnt out parents, sometimes it does really take someone outside to kind of help them kind of get back on track. But I think definitely you want to seek professional help if you're finding that you aren't able to really function at work or at home, or if you're having any thoughts about hurting yourself or hurting your child or your children, or hurting anyone else. You definitely want to seek professional help.
Yeah. I would say the same thing. I mean, when it's really severe, sometimes you're really just looking for that lifeline. You're just, yeah, trying to find someone to help. And that's definitely when to reach out. It can get scary sometimes, when you feel kind of all alone, even though a lot of people are doing very
Mm.
similar things. But it can still feel kind of like, well, I'm the only one that feels this bad, and sometimes things need to change, and they can literally change tomorrow if need be. But when you're feeling that sad, that depressed at that point, because it just doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, reaching out so that you can have someone guide you through that a little bit better. And then absolutely, if you have thoughts of harming yourself or others, um, it's definitely a time to reach out. And there's so many different opportunities of places to reach out. Psychiatrists, therapists. There's a lot of apps and online things now, and so there's a lot of different ways to reach out. But that's important when you really feel like there's nothing else you can do by yourself.
So I hear one of the things I hear both of you saying is to be on guard about isolation, because many times if you're feeling like this, it may feel better to withdraw. But what I hear each of you saying is reach out, say something to someone, let someone know how you're feeling so that you don't feel that isolated and so that you can get the support and the help that you need. Thank you for that. So Dr. Parker Fahey, let's talk a little bit about how the pandemic has exacerbated parental burnout. And although the pandemic may be winding down, I mean, COVID is probably here to stay, but the shutdown of the pandemic, that part is no longer something that we're facing. Things are getting back to some type of a new normal, perhaps. Why are parents still feeling the burnout?
Yeah, I think this is such a great question. I think a lot of us, when COVID happened, it was like, what is going on? And it's natural to feel burnt out or slightly depressed, and we're all at home and we're not seeing people. Things are different, but everybody's feeling. We just kind of got to get through. And now we're back at work, and now some people are at home still. And the problem is that not only are we still feeling so isolated, we now have all these other responsibilities and things that we have to do while COVID is still a thing, and we're still anxious about that. And so it didn't just go away. And I think right now a lot of people are like, well, we're back to normal. Why am I not feeling normal? And if anything, you've just added more to your plate. So it makes sense that you actually feel probably more burnt out now, because you're trying to do more things, get back to this new normal, but things aren't like before, unfortunately. And we do have to do things a little bit differently. And so that's why I think, again, these type of things, even these type of talks are good, because you realize, hey, what I'm feeling is not a terrible thing. A lot of other people are feeling this way, and there is a way that I can feel better. And so I think it's really good to focus on that. You are probably more burnout than before COVID. So that's okay.
Dr. Neal, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Parker Fahey, that, the burnout, I think for parents, the burnout started before the pandemic. I mean, I think it's
Mhm.
just a demanding job. And I think the pandemic put a spotlight on it. And then as we're coming out of it, it's been like, 2 years of
Mhm.
this, chronic stress, and it's going to take a lot of time to recover, and we have to be intentional about it. And I think going back to the self-care, like, just what are we doing to take care of ourselves? We're not just gonna recover automatically.
Thank you so much. The other thing that I think burnout can do is put a strain on our relationships with our spouses. So, Dr. Neal, what advice would you give to help the strain that could put on a marriage? Because again, we're coming out of lockdown. We're not in any form of lockdown, but those years were difficult as well. I would tell
Yeah.
my husband, I love you, but I don't know that we were meant to be together this much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that is really
Yeah.
what this was supposed to be. Um,
It's hard.
but how can we ease that strain that some couples are still feeling because the burnout is still present?
Yeah, I think it's really important to not assume that your partner knows how you're feeling, and to be open with the communication. Um, you know, and I'll, kind of point the finger at myself. Sometimes it feels like they should see that I'm doing all these things. How can I possibly be doing all these things and not feel burned out? But they have their own things going on, and they probably have a lot on their plate too. So I think it's important to spell it out. This is how I'm feeling. Do you have any ideas of how we could handle this better or manage this better? And then I hate to keep going back to self-care, but I think you have to take care of yourself in order to be your best self for your relationship. But I have, and I get inspiration from other couples too. I know a couple who, they would go to their kids' birthday parties together all the time. And then one time I saw just the mom, and she said, well, he wanted to, stay home and watch the game. I said, oh, that's nice. And she said, but I told him he could stay home this time. And then for the next party, I would like to stay home. So I love that compromise. I thought that was a great solution. So I think, if you can really just work together as a team and communicate, I think it won't, take away all the difficulty, but I think that's a good start.
Dr. Parker Fahey, any advice on how to help ease the strain?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think communication is really important, but people also communicate differently too. And sometimes it's hard to see in your partner the best way they communicate. And so just asking, what kind of things are help fuel you, and then being honest with what helps yourself, so that it's the self-reflection first, so that then you can kind of communicate with your partner. And your partner's your partner, hopefully for a reason. And so kind of, whether you help things with humor, whether you help things by taking, well, I'll do this so that you don't have to, and making sure you don't lose yourself, but that you also, try to get in their mindset of what helps them as well. And then again, like we said before, for what you're trying to do with yourself, that it's a day-to-day thing, so every day you're trying out new things, trying to do different things to kind of help that, because it's always fluid. I mean, even with kids, as they grow up, then there's different demands. You might not have to bottle feed them, but you have to drive them to practice, you have to do, so there's different demands. And so then, changing kind of roles depending on what works as a family, and just knowing that this is hard for everybody, and that it doesn't, if you guys disagree, or things like that, that's okay too, because that it's just a hard thing, especially when people feel burnt out. It doesn't mean that's not a good relationship, and that, yeah, but that you just have to work on, every day to do the best for yourself, for your partner, and for your family.
I could just exhale right here. Like that's just it's just such a great reminder, no matter where you are, what stage you're in your relationship. It's just such a great reminder that I have a responsibility to communicate what I need. No matter how much my spouse loves me, they will never be a mind reader. It doesn't matter how long you're together, they just never will be a mind reader. And so I have to, be able to find the language and find those words. So we have a comment from Facebook, not a question, and the comment is, the pandemic has been hard. Thank you for reminding us to take care of ourselves. So I'm glad that parents are hearing that. Dr. Parker Fahey, let's talk a little bit about burnout and setting boundaries.
Mhm.
One way to prevent burnout is actually having some healthy boundaries in place. What does that actually look like in practice?
So again, it's really hard to figure out the boundaries that you need. I think a lot of people talk about self-care, about sleeping and eating, and hygiene. And honestly, yes, that's boundaries and that's self-care, but that should be, just a given. We need to sleep, we need to eat, but it's okay to also take, boundaries and give ourselves a little bit of kindness to do stuff that we enjoy too, or that fuels us. And if that's, saying, well, I'm gonna do work, and then I'm gonna put it away at this time, and because I could stress about it all night and think about it, but is it really helping anything? So trying to set limits of, okay, I'm going to do it till this time and then not, and that's hard. That's so much harder to say than to do. And so then trying to work. Well, at what time will I really shut it off? Or what time am I really going to have my bedtime be? Or what's important to me? I want to make sure my kids get a bath and put them to bed, so I'm going to do that. Or like you said before, of I'm going to take this time to, my husband's going to take him to the party, and I'm going to set my boundary that it's okay for me to do that. And it's one thing to say, like, I'm okay with it and I need self care, but we still feel that guilt. So that it's hard to really truly get to that point where you're like, I'm going to do self care and not feel bad about it, because it will make me a better, whatever you do for your job, or a better parent. Because even though it seems slightly selfish, it's not. And it's hard to really kind of wrap your head around it. It takes a lot of time and practice, but I think that those type of boundaries that work for you in your life, you just have to start setting and then change them if they don't work.
Dr. Neal, boundaries, what does that look like?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Parker Fahey, and I think it can be hard to say no. When you already know you can't do something, but you feel the need to kind of be accommodating. But I think that sort of personality style can kind of set you up for burnout if you don't feel comfortable saying no. So I think that is an important piece, but also setting boundaries with your children. A patient comes to mind who was struggling with depression and migraines, and she was like chronically sleep deprived. She had her little one in the bed with her every night, and kind of a wild sleeper. And so part of the plan for her was transitioning the child to kind of sleep on their own. And that was just one puzzle piece. There were lots of things that needed to be worked on, but that was just one boundary that we thought might be helpful for her to kind of put in place. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I like to, the moms that I work with, we talk a little bit about how expensive saying yes is, which then makes no really important. Because if you're handing out all these yeses, at some point, that's going to take a toll on you. So for those that have a difficult time saying no, I try to work with them and help them reserve their yes and not be so free with yes, but kind of take a step back, see who else might step up to the plate before you immediately offer your yes. Yeah. So that was a great example. So let's move on. Dr. Parker Fahey, burnout can make us feel like bad parents, along with many other things in parenting. Sometimes your children alone will make you feel like bad parents. How do you overcome that guilt and start healing from the burnout?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. There's a different type of guilt, I think, sometimes with your kids than even a job. Because they depend so much on you, and you want to shape them to be wonderful, you know, people, and be the best that they can be. And so if you feel like you fall short, you feel like you're disappointing them in doing that. And like you said, sometimes it can just be really upfront. Mom, I hate you right now, things like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing the best I can, and that's the whole thing. As far as the difference is, you can't expect them to understand things all the time, and that's okay. And so I think, part of it is just understanding, yeah, that guilt's going to be there, but talk to anybody, everybody's has that guilt, and you really are. The fact that you want to be the best parent you can be alone is amazing, and that you are trying every day to do that. And then I do think that there are some things, the fact that you're focusing on your burnout, and that you're trying to be a better parent is great. That you're not just trying to especially because we talked about symptoms, you could be angry, you feel like you're yelling at your kids all the time, and that's not the parent I want to be. And so knowing that there's always room for improvement, I mean, even the best mother in the whole entire world, every day is, what can I do to great today for them? And so if you feel like you fall short, even though I think the fact that you just got through a day is not falling short, but if you do, you have the next day, and knowing that even if they say this isn't fair, this, you're doing it for the best, best thing for them, or you're trying to at that time. And talking to people too, because you'll realize you're not alone in feeling like that.
Dr. Neal, how do we overcome this guilt?
Yeah, I love what Dr. Parker Fahey said, especially about talking to other people and hearing that they're going through the same thing that you're going through. I love, I have joined a couple Facebook, like mom support groups, and some of the memes are just so hilarious and relatable. Like, we're all struggling, right? And I think as a psychiatrist, like in mental health, we think a lot about like cognitive distortions, right? And so a lot of times the guilt and the shame is there's a lot of negative self-talk that's not really deserved. Like we feel like we should be able to do all of this, or we should have done this better, or should have done that better. So I think, get rid of the should statements. You are who you are, and you're human. And try to change the self-talk. Kind of try to talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a friend. You are a good mom. You are doing the best that you can. Your kid is crazy. No, I'm just kidding. No, but just to be a little bit more gentle and compassionate with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes even just
That's
reminding
great.
yourself of the things that went right in a day, even if it's, hey, I got their socks on. That was that was a win. So just focusing on the, like you said, that compassion to yourself.
And I love that, because something else that I kind of hear in what y'all are saying is, meet those negative thoughts with the truth, because many times those thoughts are just thoughts. All thoughts are not truth. And so meeting that thought of, I'm a bad parent, with, wait a minute, my kids are healthy, they are developing well, they live in a nice home, so just kind of reminding yourself of, meet that thought with what's real. And sometimes that can kind of help deal with the mindset issues around guilt, because guilt is really very heavy thing to carry. It becomes very, very heavy to carry. So we've talked a little bit, we've kind of sprinkled in throughout the interview ideas about self-care practices. Can either of you share something kind of specific, either that you do, or maybe some of the moms that do, or maybe that you even recommend to your patients for self-care? And I'll start with Dr. Parker Fahey.
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, it's kind of like a daily trying to figure out what's best. And, again, since we are talking about some working parents and things like that, I think our mindset has always been, with school and things like that, that it's always got to be more and more work. I think one of the self-care that I've learned is to really try to schedule my time a little bit better. I don't think that I used to do that as much. So even scheduling time with my kids, this is what I'm going to do. The other thing I've recently found out is having a mommy's helper to come for 1 or 2 hours on a weekend, so that I can just get some work done, so I can feel no guilt there, and then spend the rest of my day with my kids. Making sure I prioritize sleep, because I don't necessarily do that all the time. And then talking it out. I have some friends who are in similar situations as far as young kids and trying to work, and what do they do? What works for them? And journaling, and so when I get really, really stressed, and I feel like I'm so stressed that I can't do work, I'm just going to journal and at least, or make lists of the things I have to do. And sometimes just that alone is enough that I can. And then again, sometimes just having a shower, getting ready, like taking time for myself, not having the kids when you go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. That those little self-care things are really helpful.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. Neal, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to um, like, it does have to be personalized. So I think it's helpful to kind of write a list of all the things you think you might enjoy if you had the time. And it might be, some things might take 1 minute, some of the things might take 5 minutes, some of the things might take an hour or a day. But some of the things I love to do, if I just have 1 minute, it might be just putting on a little lip gloss or putting on some lotion, remembering to drink some water. Sometimes I close the door to my office and I turn on some music and I get out of my seat and I dance. So that's fun. I'm taking a hip hop dance class. I started that recently with a girlfriend. That's so much fun. And I'm so grateful to my partner. He watches our daughter while I do that, or sometimes he may give me time to, go shopping or go hang out with girlfriends. But if I don't have that, if I'm home with my daughter, I try to think of things that I can do with her that are fun. Or sometimes I'll let her know, mom wants to take a break right now. Do you think you could play alone for a little while? And, I have maybe a weekly show that I love to tune into, or, I think of self-care in two ways. I think of the self-care that's good for you, like your exercise, maybe meditation, eating a good diet, and then the self-care that really kind of brings you some joy, like, something that really makes you feel good. So I think it's good to think about both of those buckets, kind of trying to fill both those buckets.
I love this. This is great. I think one other thing that I suggest to people to do for self-care is to silence some of the notifications on their phone. And I do that because I think that it's hard to be present in the moment when these things are binging and dinging, and it pulls us, right? So if I hear a ding, even if I'm just glancing, even if I don't pick it up. So I think that just that one little thing at least allows you, whatever the thing is you're doing, whether it's time with your child, your spouse, your significant other, or whether it's time alone, not having the constant interruptions from the phone, I think can help, at least for us, to be present in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love
So
that.
as we wrap up, we've got a couple more questions. This one is, we're talking about medications here. Do people experiencing burnout need antidepressants or other medications? Dr. Neal, what are your thoughts on that?
I think if we're truly dealing with burnout, we're not thinking about antidepressant medications. I think it's important to look at the root cause. There's usually like maybe some lifestyle factors, some personality factors, like we talked about, like difficulty saying no. I think you want to start there. Medication really isn't going to get at the real problem.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Dr. Parker Fahey, let me ask you this question. What resources are you aware of that are available to parents experiencing burnout? Who in their social circles should they turn to for help? But how do we get support around burnout?
Right. I think that's a great question, because there's lots of different kind of levels of burnout that even every person feels at different times. And so there's different levels of help and different, you know, types of things that you can do for that. So I think some of the resources can be even something as simple as an app. There's like the Headspace and Calm app and all of these different things that there are out there right now that can kind of help you just kind of take a step back, breathe. I think that's when if that's your thing. There's some people who say,
Right.
this is just not for me. And so maybe, but there's also even journal groups. There's something, I think it's called like Focus Mate, where you just have like a Zoom with someone to focus on work for a little bit. And so you can schedule your time like that. But then I think there's also support groups too. So like I said before, whether it's religion, activities, like you said, you're doing a dance class, these type of things. And a lot of those are for people who feel burnout, that they are not so severe necessarily that they feel like they have to reach out to their physician, but they do want to make some positive changes for the better. And those types of resources are really, really great. I know on kp.org for our Kaiser patients, we have like a list of different opportunity or apps or different things that can help for certain things, like including burnout, depression, anxiety. I think when people get a little bit more severe, that they start to, I mean, one of the first questions we ask when we ask about depression is little interest in activities and doing things that you once had. That can be burnout, but that also can be a first sign of depression, anxiety, things like that, that you might want to reach out to, a therapist, a psychiatrist, your primary care doctor, OBGYN, pediatrician, lots of different physicians who can help. And so that's a great option as well. There's counselors that, people can have like life coaches and things like that. There's no judgment. It's whatever works for you. And just knowing that there's so many different things out there, because I think some people say, well, I've tried this, it just doesn't work. This is just my life. And that's not necessarily the case. There's lots of different things because there's lots of different people out there. And
Yeah.
so, a good thing is we do have a lot of, we have the internet at our fingertips, and we can find a lot of these things that we don't have 2 seconds in our day, but we really can take 2 seconds maybe to do like a 5-minute breathing session in an app. So depending on your life, depending on the time that you have, depending on what works for you, there's lots and lots of resources out there.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, Dr. Neal, any resources that you can think of or that come to mind that might support parents that are dealing with burnout right now?
Wow, I think Dr. Parker Fahey really covered all the bases. I would just kind of reiterate that, Kaiser Permanente members, they do have free access to certain apps like the Calm app for meditation and mindfulness, or the My Strength app. But I think Dr. Parker Fahey really did a great job of covering the resources.
But even not, there's like coupons and things like that for these apps and stuff like it. So no matter what, there's plenty of opportunities out there.
And most of them do have some type of free option, so that does help. I want to personally thank both Dr. Parker Fahey and Dr. Neal for taking time out of their busy day to really step in and give parents some support. The last comment we received is, thank you for this amazing discussion and recommendations. So if you are a parent suffering from burnout, and if you're watching this in the replay, feel free to still put your questions and comments in there. We'll try and get back and review those and answer them if we can. But most importantly, if you're experiencing or feeling burnout, reach out, let someone know how you're feeling so that you can get the support around you that you need. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Parker Fahey and Dr. Neal. Thank you, parents, for watching. Until next time, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.